In 2022, Tampa Bay was crowned Florida's economic powerhouse, the next Austin. Tech workers were flooding in. Median home prices soared to $420,000, and corporate giants raced to plant flags on the Gulf. 2 years later, the Tampa Bay housing market crisis has trapped even Fortune 500 professionals. Salaries that once guaranteed comfort now barely cover insurance, let alone plummeting mortgages. Office mandates mean remote workers face impossible choices: sell at a loss or lose their jobs. How did America's rising star metro become a place where six-figure earners can't afford to move, and retirees are forced to leave after decades? The answer starts with a boom nobody believed could ever go bust. Tampa Bay's promise rested on a foundation that looked unshakable. In 2019, the metro's 3.2 million residents stretched from Tampa to St. Petersburg and Clearwater, a region defined by both size and diversity. The area's workforce was a cross-section of modern America: 30% professionals in finance, technology, and healthcare, a quarter retirees, and the rest split among service, tourism, and military. MacDill Air Force Base anchored national security with CENTCOM and SOCOM, while Fortune 500 names, Raymond James, Jabil, WellCare, kept payrolls steady and offices humming. Home ownership felt possible for most. The median house cost between $245,000 and $270,000. Insurance, though always a factor in Florida, averaged $1,900 to $2,800 a year, manageable compared to coastal outliers. Homes typically spent 38 to 50 days on the market before selling, a sign of healthy demand without frenzy. Corporate recruiters pitched Tampa Bay as the answer to high-cost living, luring talent from New York, Chicago, and California with the promise of affordable homes, no state income tax, and a lifestyle that blended city energy with beach weekends. The University of South Florida supplied a constant stream of tech graduates, fueling a growing innovation corridor. New arrivals believed they'd found stability, a place where a six-figure salary still meant a shot at a backyard and a garage. The numbers all pointed in one direction: security, not risk. But beneath the surface, the region's exposure to outside demand and insurance volatility waited for the right spark. By the spring of 2021, Tampa Bay was at the center of a nationwide migration. Remote workers from New York finance, California tech, and Chicago corporate offices arrived by the thousands, each chasing the promise of sun, space, and a backyard. The market responded with a frenzy. Median home prices shot from $270,000 to $420,000 in less than 2 years. In West Chase and New Tampa, bidding wars pushed family homes to $500,000 and beyond. South Tampa's waterfront, once reserved for old money, saw listings jump from $800,000 to $1.4 million in a single season. Downtown St. Petersburg, known for its arts and nightlife, watched condos climb from $300,000 to $650,000 almost overnight. Investors poured in too. Nearly a quarter of all purchases at peak went to buyers who never planned to move in. They snapped up new construction in Wesley Chapel and Riverview, betting that demand would never slow. Companies expanded office footprints, rolled out relocation bonuses, and branded Tampa Bay as the next Austin, a tech hub with beach access, no state income tax, and affordable homes. The narrative was everywhere. This city was built for the future, and prices could only go up. But beneath the headlines, the seeds of instability were taking root. The surge created a cohort of buyers who paid top dollar, often with little local knowledge and even less margin for error. For a brief moment, it seemed like Tampa Bay had found a formula for endless growth. The reality was far less stable. Corporate recruiters flooded LinkedIn and job boards with postings promising a new life in Tampa Bay. Companies dangled relocation stipends, cash bonuses, and even months of paid temporary housing to attract professionals from New York, Chicago, and the Bay Area. Human Resources departments geofenced job ads to target high-earning workers tired of city rents and taxes. The pitch was simple: keep your career, double your square footage, and swap subway rides for beach sunsets. Tech firms and finance giants rolled out remote-first contracts, assuring recruits they could build a future in Tampa without ever returning to Manhattan or Silicon Valley. Employees arrived with boxes and laptops, expecting the best of both worlds: a big city paycheck and an affordable Florida lifestyle. Downtown St. Petersburg's population jumped nearly 20% in 3 years, while incomes in the tech sector soared. The narrative caught fire. Developers branded new towers as the next Austin, promising not just office space but a whole innovation corridor. Local officials touted $11 billion in new projects, from Water Street Tampa to Gasworks. Corporate press releases painted Tampa Bay as the country's premier destination for talent and growth. For a moment, the hype machine looked unstoppable. The promise was everywhere. Tampa Bay wasn't just keeping up, it was outpacing the old guard. The region had become the showcase for what the future of work and life could look like. A finance analyst earning $85,000 in Tampa Bay brings home about $5,200 a month after taxes. In 2025, the median home costs $365,000. Even with a 10% down payment, the mortgage alone, at a 7% interest rate, runs around $2,350 per month. Insurance and taxes add another $900 to $1,200. That's a total of $3,250 to $3,550 before factoring in student loan payments or association dues. For a single professional, housing alone eats up nearly 70% of take-home pay. Dual-income households, once considered safe, face a similar squeeze. A couple pulling in $165,000 together clears about $9,600 a month. Most aim for a family home in the $420,000 to $500,000 range. With a standard mortgage, insurance, and property tax, their monthly costs land between $4,800 and $5,900. Add in $700 to $1,200 in student loans, and the math no longer works. Even with 2 solid careers, half or more of their net income disappears into the house, leaving little margin for savings, kids, or emergencies. Healthcare administrators, tech developers, and accountants earning between $78,000 and $110,000 find themselves in the same bind. Student debt balances in Tampa Bay often range from $36,000 to $62,000, with monthly minimums of $400 to $700. Mortgage underwriters flag these debt-to-income ratios as risky, but buyers press ahead, betting that salaries will rise or that insurance costs will level off. Instead, insurance premiums have doubled since 2021, now averaging $8,500 a year for non-waterfront homes and up to $16,000 for properties near the bay. The old rule that professional jobs guarantee home ownership has broken down. Even directors and VPs earning $120,000 to $160,000 discover that property taxes, insurance, and mortgage payments on a $500,000 home can swallow more than half their monthly income. This isn't just a problem for first-time buyers. It's a system-wide failure, where the basic math of homeownership no longer adds up for the very people Tampa Bay spent years recruiting. The numbers are clear. The promise of security has been replaced by a budget that only works on paper, not in real life. A finance couple, both working at Raymond James, bought their dream home in New Tampa in 2021. They paid $445,000, stretching to cover the down payment and closing costs with the help of signing bonuses. At the time, their combined salary of $165,000 seemed more than enough. But by 2025, the house is worth $375,000. Their insurance premium has climbed to $8,900 a year. If they tried to sell, they would have to bring nearly $70,000 in cash just to close, erasing years of savings and making relocation for a better job in Charlotte impossible. The math no longer works, but the door is locked behind them. A tech worker from California arrived in 2022, lured by a $105,000 salary and the promise of affordable living. He bought a 3-bedroom in West Chase for $398,000, convinced he had timed the market right. Now the home is valued at $335,000. Insurance costs $8,400. His company has since ended remote work, demanding a return to San Jose. Selling would mean a $63,000 loss plus moving expenses. Staying means losing the job he moved across the country to take. The options are lose the house or lose the career. Downtown St. Petersburg drew young professionals with its new towers and nightlife. A marketing manager earning $72,000 bought a condo in 2022 for $285,000, putting down just enough to get approved. 2 years later, the condo is worth $225,000. Insurance is $6,400, and a special assessment for building repairs adds $42,000. Monthly housing costs now eat up 58% of her take-home pay. The math points to one answer: walk away or keep pouring money into a sinking investment. On Davis Islands, a retiree purchased a waterfront home for $825,000 in 2021. The house is now valued at $640,000. Insurance alone is $16,500 a year. With a fixed income of $6,800 a month, housing now takes up 62% of his budget. Savings drain away each month. After 15 years in Florida, the question is not whether to stay, but how much longer he can hold on. 4 faces, 4 stories, all caught by the same trap. The numbers look different, but the outcome is the same. Ownership has become a liability, and escape routes are blocked by underwater mortgages and rising costs. By mid-2025, Tampa Bay's housing market looks nothing like the boom years. Inventory has exploded, up between 55 and 68% compared to the previous summer. For sale signs linger on lawns and condo towers for months. The median home price has dropped to somewhere between $355,000 and $375,000, erasing tens of thousands in paper wealth in less than a year. Days on market now stretch from 82 to 105, more than double the pace of the pandemic peak. Nearly half of all listings have cut their asking price as sellers scramble to attract cautious buyers. In some neighborhoods, price reductions hit 56% of homes. Contract failures have become routine, with 23 to 27% of pending deals falling apart before closing. Buyers back out when insurance quotes arrive or financing falls through. The glut is most severe in professional class suburbs like New Tampa and West Chase, where homes that once sparked bidding wars now sit unsold. Downtown condos and waterfront properties, once the darlings of relocation packages and investor portfolios, are no longer immune. In St. Petersburg, oversupply has pushed prices down by as much as 22% in certain buildings. New construction in exurban tracts, Wesley Chapel, Riverview, has stalled, with builders offering incentives just to keep crews working. 6 to 8 months of inventory now sits on the market, a level not seen since the last housing crash. The market's old engine, fast sales, rising prices, relentless demand, has seized up. What remains is a slow-moving correction measured in price cuts, failed contracts, and empty houses that once promised a new future. Insurance premiums in Tampa Bay now rival mortgage payments, and the reasons run deeper than hurricanes or aging roofs. For a typical inland home, annual premiums land between $5,800 and $8,200. Along the waterfront, the cost climbs as high as $18,000. Even in new subdivisions like Wesley Chapel or New Tampa, owners have watched rates double in just a few years. This isn't just about local storms. The real driver is reinsurance, the insurance that Florida carriers buy on the global market to protect themselves from catastrophic losses. Since 2022, reinsurance costs for Florida companies have jumped by 50 to 100%, a reaction to record payouts from Hurricane Ian, Milton, and Helene. Those increases are passed directly to homeowners, regardless of claims history or building age. Carriers that once competed for Tampa Bay business have pulled back or left entirely. National brands like State Farm and Farmers stopped writing new policies, citing runaway risk and litigation. The state-run Citizens Property Insurance now covers about a third of all homes in the region. But even its rates are climbing, and coverage comes with strict limits and potential surcharges if a major storm hits. Meanwhile, flood zone remapping in Hillsborough and Pinellas counties has forced thousands of households to buy additional coverage, adding $2,200 to $5,500 a year for properties newly labeled at risk. Legal reforms have begun to slow the spiral of lawsuits that once accounted for nearly 80% of all U.S. homeowner insurance litigation in Florida alone. But the structural costs remain. In Tampa Bay, the price of risk is now built into the cost of living, erasing any advantage over other metros. For many households, insurance is no longer a side expense. It's the factor that makes homeownership unaffordable. Corporate relocation programs that once flooded Tampa Bay with new arrivals have gone silent. Beginning in late 2023, major employers started pulling back on hiring incentives and quietly ended the relocation stipends that defined the boom. Tech firms and finance companies, once eager to brand Tampa as their next hub, shifted priorities almost overnight. Promises of permanent remote work were replaced by return-to-office mandates, first as suggestions, then as ultimatums. By spring 2024, waves of employees who had moved for jobs in Tampa faced a new reality: report back to headquarters or risk termination. Recruiters who once offered cash bonuses and months of temporary housing now delivered a different message: no more support, no exceptions. Human resources departments stopped advertising Tampa as a relocation destination, and the flow of inbound talent reversed. For some, the only option was to sell at a loss. Local agents estimate that by early 2025, as much as 20 to 30% of new listings in professional neighborhoods stemmed from job relocations, layoffs, or forced office returns. The actual number remains a patchwork of broker notes and client interviews. But the pattern is clear. The withdrawal wasn't limited to tech and finance. Even defense contractors and healthcare systems, once considered immune, scaled back hiring and paused office expansions. The result is a surge in inventory that tracks directly with the timeline of corporate retreat. Tampa Bay's market, once fueled by institutional optimism, now absorbs the consequences of decisions made in distant boardrooms. For the professionals who moved to Florida for stability, the trap has closed with no corporate safety net. By 2025, Tampa Bay's housing inventory surged by more than 55%, with median prices falling from $420,000 at the peak to between $355,000 and $375,000. Even households earning Fortune 500 salaries found themselves underwater, unable to cover insurance premiums that reached $8,200 inland and up to $18,000 on the waterfront. The data shows that nearly half of all listings required price cuts, and almost a quarter of contracts failed to close. Despite Tampa Bay's reputation as Florida's economic powerhouse, neither corporate relocations nor high professional wages shielded families from the combined impact of soaring costs and policy reversals. Some questions remain, such as how insurance reform will unfold and when affordability might return. But the evidence is clear. The same growth that once attracted new residents and companies has now left thousands trapped by declining values and rising expenses. In Tampa Bay, economic strength alone could not prevent a housing crisis from engulfing the region's middle class.